Hello, you're watching Away From Home Terminal Television, and this is John Wright reporting. I would like to read to you an email sent in by an anonymous activist in the labor movement on the issue of railroad retirement. The problem with most of the message coming from the union regarding the railroad retirement issue is that most people don't understand their own retirement. When I say we need more education and training, the national union will tell us, well, just come to a training. They just can't send shit in the mail, excuse me, and expect folks to read it or even understand it for that matter. If the average railroader was to read the emails below, they would stop the minute it does not talk about sports or their deadhead home. I would love to see from the Education and Training Department a pamphlet in easy terms, explaining how our railroad retirement works. The first part should be very simple, and the last part of the pamphlet could be historical. If you have a chance to suggest this to Tolman or some of the other national leaders, that would be great. I suggest a YouTube video with real railroaders talking about retirement. The video could have some railroaders who are struggling on disability and how the reduced payments of the Republican agenda would affect them. All it would take would be a couple of iPhone-like plants and the networks of jobs that would be created to get those Eastern Kentucky, Western Virginia, and Virginia folks off of coal. People really don't like coal. It's just like an addiction to cocaine. They love the feeling that it gives them. Money and the ability to take care of their families is what they want and need. Those bumper stickers, friends of coal, are troubling to me. It would be like putting a sticker on my car that reads, I smoke and I vote. You remember those? The tobacco industry paid for those, just like the coal companies are paying for the Friends of Coal stickers that we have now. Just like that dude on the radio used to say, and this is the rest of the story. China and India are going to buy up all of that coal anyway. Kentucky has just signed a big contract with India. The scare tactic from the right is working well. They say Obama is going to take your guns. The real story, and not to mention fact, is that the Obama administration has put no legislation to the House on guns. Zero. Most of our membership does not know how Washington works. Maybe we should educate our union members with the same vigor that we mobilize for the Democratic Party about railroad retirement, union structure, and Washington, D.C. To answer your question, how much more lying will the Republicans do? Bill Clinton said it best. Every politician wants you to believe that he was born in a log cabin that he built himself. The Democrats have their agenda and fib a little too. Just look at Chicago and their push towards privatization of the school system. The Democrats are turning against the Chicago Teachers Union. Hell, if you want criticism about the unions versus Democrats, there are big lessons to learn from Wisconsin. The lessons that should have been learned there was that the Democrats should have listened to the unions and the activists. The battle is not at the ballot box, it's on the street, re-educating a mass of people that have been, for years, bombarded with union rhetoric from the so-called media outlets. When the Labor Temple and the union activists voted for a general strike, the national unions and Democrats should have listened. Hell, the politicians ran away. They used a general strike of the legislature to get the Washington story out on the national stage, the Wisconsin story on the national stage. But when the activists and the people doing the work called for a strike, the battle call from the national unions were beat them at the ballot box. Sort of sounds like the statement we all know well as railroaders. Boys, y'all know we work under the Railroad Labor Act. We can't strike. Our BLET lesson from the Democrats should have been learned. Excuse me. The BLET lesson that we should have learned from the Democrats is the same sort of lesson that should have been learned in Wisconsin. Our union president made our case to the PEB well, very well, bless his heart, but his hands were tied behind his back. The union will never be strong without the membership willing to throw their bodies onto the machine. Everyone can make a phone call to strike. If our labor movement would get behind its membership and build up its base as much as it does working for the Democratic Party, we would have a different labor movement. We have general chairmen and local leaders who don't know who Eugene V. Debs is and was, and not to mention how he relates to Labor Day. If they understood that story, well, if you read Eugene, excuse me, I'm getting a little overboard here, but it's funny, I think. Let me start again, because this is a very important point. If they were to understand that story and read Eugene Debs' paper titled You Railroad Men, they would understand why we are in the labor movement and where we are today. It is because our labor movement has done just like they do with the railroads. They get too close to the other side. The government and FRA mostly sides with their masters, the corporations and railroad barons of today. My decision about this election is already made. Vote Democrat. It's the only other option. They historically side with the middle class and working poor. The Republicans side with business and millionaires. And their message is division. Woody Guthrie said it best. If Jesus was to preach like he did in Galilee, they would lay Jesus Christ in his grave. Thank you for listening to Away from Home Terminal Television. Thank you very much.